All right, welcome to the third try of the first episode of the Unsubscribed Tribe podcast. My name is Janet. I go by Rocky's Adventure on Instagram. I'm joined by my very good friend, Ben Lee. And Ben and I actually met in a fitness forum about over 15 years ago. And we are now 15-year veterans of the fitness industry. We've seen a lot of things happen and we're seeing a lot of concerning things. One of those, of course, is COVID. It's really challenged a lot of people in being able to meet their health and fitness goals. We're seeing a lot of information on the internet, and most of it is frankly advertising and not advice. The thing with health and fitness is that it is something that applies to everyone, and not everyone wants to hear the truth. So that's why Ben and I are here starting the Unsubscribe Tribe, because if you don't like what we have to say, go ahead and smash that unsubscribe button. Get the fuck out of here. We don't care. We're here seeking the truth. We're looking for evidence-based information. We're having conversations with the professionals in the industry. So Ben, why don't you talk about your background and where you are at right now in your career?
Yeah, definitely, Janet. And yeah, we've known each other for such a long time. It's hard to believe. 15 years ago, Facebook barely existed to the general public. Like you needed to be like a university student just to get an account. And now you get all kinds of crazy people spouting all kinds of bullshit on there. And this is kind of the way society's gone. But anyways, so I started my academic or professional career as a mechanical engineer. When I was a kid, I really liked cars and I wanted to build cars for a living. And, after going to the University of Waterloo, going through the co-op program, I kind of realized being an automotive engineer sucks. You're just, you're basically like the company bitch, like everyone's beating you up. But, I was really into weightlifting. I was into martial arts, all that kind of fun stuff. And I never put two and two together that the stuff I'm learning in school, all my solid mechanics, my dynamics, my statics courses, all that physics could be applied into making me a better athlete. So I later on met a professor at Waterloo in the kinesiology department, Dr. Stuart McGill, who is the world's leading spine biomechanics expert. And we got to talking because, I used to read a lot of websites, as I'm sure you did, Janet, way back in the day, T Nation, Elite FTS. And back in those days, there was actually, really interesting stuff. And they would keep saying, Dr. Stuart McGill from the University of Waterloo says this. Dr. Stuart McGill from the University of Waterloo says that. So I got thinking, well, I go to the University of Waterloo. Why don't I meet this guy if he's so great? So literally he just showed up the next day and knocked on his office door. We had like a 3-hour chat just about how engineering principles can be applied into clinical practice, into performance training and whatnot. And that basically led me doing my master's degree. So I have a master's in biomechanics unsupervised by Dr. McGill. I published numerous papers in peer-reviewed academic journals about training on exercise or training for spinal stability. I'm published in a textbook as well, lead author of a textbook chapter on prescription of exercise for spinal rehabilitation. And I roll that into what I do today. I am a co-founder and chief scientific officer of Fortius Labs. And we help active people in pain achieve pain-free and optimal performance. We use a very proprietary artificial intelligence that's been developed through my partner's computer vision engineering and my biomechanics expertise. And our goal is to create accessibility to high quality physical healthcare, because for all of y'all listening, I'm sure you've experienced this. There's a lot of real shit trainers, shit therapists out there who are just spouting so much nonsense, stuff that's 20 years old, or not even based in real evidence. And this is this big problem. There's a lot of people, they're working out with their trainers at a local Good Life. The trainer is just going like, yeah, bro, it's all you, man. And lo and behold, they're wearing their shoulders and their knees, and about a year later, they're wondering, why does my shoulder hurt so much? So our goal at Fortius is to dispel all that bullshit by actually providing everything you would need to know about how can you take care of your body so you can train safely, effectively, and efficiently, but without having to go to school for 10 years and get a PhD in exercise science.
Yeah, it's funny because we've spent so much time, I think, working on our own bodies, and that's why we're in the position we are. So last year, you gave me the opportunity to start working with Fortius Labs. And, the funny thing about that is, in essence, it's forcing you to look at your weaknesses. And a lot of the stuff that we see online, the algorithms, the advertising, it's not real advice. It's all just designed to get more clicks, to get more views. And frankly, not a lot of people want to admit their weaknesses. So when you gave me the opportunity last year, it really brought to my attention things I've been ignoring for years. So for those of you that don't know, I grew up homeschooled. I was not at all a fitness and health fan. I did not want to go to the gym. I hated sweating. I didn't think I could run. That all changed when I ended up getting a job at the Air Canada Centre, working for NHL, NBA, MLS games. And I thought, this energy in sports is pretty awesome. I wonder what it's like in the gym. So I actually got a job at Good Life at the front desk and started learning from those trainers that you talked about, which led to, I think, a program which I fondly call the Patella Killer. And we'll get into that a little bit later. I ended up changing my degree to kinesiology. And I think as a result of having those conversations, you talked about T Nation, the fitness forum. I found the information I was looking for online. And back in the day, those were, the professionals that we're seeing leading really big organizations. Today, there was just that, a couple outlets, T Nation being one of them. There was great, people on there, Charles Poliquin, Berardi, two people that I latched onto really quickly who have really advanced my knowledge. Funny you talk about meeting Dr. Miguel. I met John Berardi and I told him that I worked for a sugar company. So he looked at me like I was crazy, and now I realize, just how in error I was. But I mean, to that point, I was a marketer for a sugar company. So after university, I jumped into social media. I was living in Toronto. I ended up moving out west and starting to work for Lake Louise ski area and skiing. I quickly decided that Lake Louise was a big culture shock compared to Toronto. I moved to Calgary and accidentally joined the bobsled team. Spent a season doing that, which led to 9 crashes at 120 kilometers an hour, a concussion that the effects lasted for over 3 years. And a few years later, I was hit by a skier. That happened in February 2019. So, due to all the things that I had been, inflicting on my body, all these traumas from working at the Air Canada Centre with a bag of beer on my back to, doing that bobsled and all those crashes, I ended up completely torquing my body. And when I was hit by a skier, my back went out of place. So that happened in 2 areas. I had 2 disc herniations. And that's when we started to evaluate my weaknesses. And the funny thing is, this all happened during quarantine. I was able to heal my slip discs, and I'm stronger than I was when I was 21 because I finally addressed those weaknesses. So, definitely a mistake that I made. And today we're going to be talking about the 3 biggest mistakes. I mean, there's so many to choose from. I had a hard time narrowing it down to 3. Ben, why don't you kick it off with the first big mistake that you made in your health and fitness journey?
Yeah, geez, that's a good question because I've made a shit ton of mistakes. I'm probably still making a whole bunch right now. But, if I could think about what the most pressing mistake was, I think it was just the number one thing I could say was just not listening to my body. And I say that because for those of you who don't know me, I've had about how many now? 5 orthopedic surgeries. And this is all, and those are just the main injuries that were bad enough to need surgeries. There's a whole bunch of other shit. So I should run them down for you. From '08 to 2012, I was continually tearing parts of my rotator cuff. Didn't realize they were actually tearing. I just kind of feel like, oh, there's a big snap in my shoulder. Now I can't move my arm more than 10 degrees in each direction. Yeah, maybe I'll just walk it off, and a few weeks later I'll be better. And that was the name of the game for me. And so from that period, I kept tearing my rotator cuff. Eventually, the final insult was in a Muay Thai fight. The whole thing just went off. Felt like I was going to dislocate my shoulder. So I had that surgically repaired. Fast forward a couple of years later, I was dating this girl and trying to show off at a rock climbing gym, trying to do a muscle up. Blew my triceps clean off clean off my elbow. So that was painful. And oddly enough,
Was
I
she
walked it off.
impressed? Was she impressed by that?
I think she was like, "Oh fuck! Like, what have I got myself into?" And yeah, and then crazy part is I walked that off. Like she got driven home. I iced up my elbow, and I just let until the pain subsided. And I was back training like a week or two later.
Mhm, mhm.
Finally had this decision to get that surgically repaired about a year later. Although really should have been done like that. I should have gone to the hospital that day. Fast forward a few years later, I tore my left quad tendon twice, and this was a bad one because at the time, I was coming off a tricep surgery. I was getting back into the full swing of training. I was just pushing like go, go, go all the time. And I remember getting, sharp pains in my knee every time I would do front squats. And in my infinite wisdom, I just tell myself, yeah, you're being a wuss. Go man up and finish this off. Turns out that was a really bad idea because I ended up blowing that quad tendon clean off my kneecap while I was just doing some light training one day at my Muay Thai gym. So that happened, and because of the compensations from that, a couple of years after that, I tore my right quad tendon while hiking in Alaska. So I can say that I left my right quad as well as the remnants of my last relationship in Ketchikan, Alaska. But that's a whole nother story for another day.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
It's a good
yeah,
place to
but
leave it. I mean, it's not anywhere near, Brampton, so you're fine. You can just leave it at there.
yeah, yeah, if it wasn't Brampton, I'm sure someone would have definitely stolen it by now.
Mhm.
But yeah, like that's the big thing is that like I was very much just like training myself. Like I didn't have any coaches. The internet was not what it is today, and there wasn't ready information available to you. You could just go Google. There was just small little tidbits. And I remember when I was powerlifting, my biggest, I guess, coaching resource were West Side Barbell articles.
Mhm, mhm.
And I remember, Louis Simmons would say, like, oh, if you're complaining it hurts, you're just being a bitch. So I was like, all right, noted. So every time I would get a little nagging ache or pain, I'd be like, oh, I'm just being a bitch. Go man up.
Mhm.
So that turns out was not a good idea. And I later on learned about how messed up all those West Side Barbell guys are. Like after they retire, after they get off all the steroids and they're no longer training heavy, all that catches up with them. And that's a thing that I'm experiencing right now. And shout outs to my therapist, Dr. Don at the Trinity Health Collective / Brampton Muay Thai, been putting me back together,
Mhm, mhm.
putting me back together my shoulders, my calf, my hip, my knees, all that good stuff. And that is something I really wish I did early on, was to actually take care of myself and to think about the long game. Because at the time, I mean, when you're in your 20s, all you think about is, I got to get jacked so I can pick up chicks and feel good about myself, and all this nonsense that young testosterone fueled men are into, without thinking about what's going to happen to me when I'm 40 years old.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, here I am in my mid 30s, trying to put it all together so that I can still go hard when I'm in my 40s, 50s, 60s, and keep going on beyond that.
Yeah, we're in it for the long game. Talking about like listening to your body, from that, moment of pain, it just makes me think of, what I've been learning recently about painkillers. And even what you were saying about the power lifters, what I've seen in professional sports is, I mean, these are high level athletes that are taking non-steroid anti-inflammatories to be able to perform for their sport. Those are not good for your body. They ruin your gut. They actually contribute to you actually not accumulating muscle. You're not building muscle. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to dive really deep into that, because that was one thing that really ruined me. I mean, you talk about not listening to your body, and then we take these painkillers and we're not listening to those signals to be able to address those weaknesses.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like especially nowadays, doctors are just so ready. I remember after all my surgeries, I had like they gave me 60 Percocets or 60 Tramadols. After my elbow surgery, I didn't even take any for those. They're like on the quad is a different story, but they're just so ready to give you a bunch of painkillers. I mean, there are times like acute post-surgery when you can
Mhm.
feel the anchors drilled into your kneecap, and you feel that swelling of the bone with those fresh anchors drilled into there. It's like, yeah, okay, you need your painkillers, but I mean, this is how people get then hooked on this, because there's now a physiological and psychological addiction. You start needing it just to feel normal. And man, like what a disaster that turned out to be. Like the medical community really fucked us on that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And on under other end of the spectrum, stuff like Tylenol and Advil just so readily abused, because over the counter, people think, oh, I can just buy it at Walmart, I can go buy it at Shoppers, and it can't be that bad for me. But you're right, it wrecks your gut. Tylenol on a milligram per milligram basis is more toxic than a lot of oral steroids, more toxic than D-bol or Anadrol. And that's saying a lot. And I remember when I was working in engineering, the secretary there would be like, oh, I'm having such a headache. Doesn't have any Tylenol. And like 5 people would come into her with their own bottles.
Mm-hmm.
And like, God damn, and these guys are drinking after work on top of that, just wrecking their livers. But you hit on a really good point, which is, I think this is not very well known, is an NSAID, like an Advil, is just, it's like dropping a nuclear bomb on inflammation, and just getting all inflammation out of there.
It
And what
blew my
people
mind to like learn about that, but also the neurotransmitters in your gut. So like it is a feedback loop of terror. Like basically I'm learning, like I was on this to the point where I developed hives because I was constantly on Robaxacet. I was taking about 3 a day. I really like the muscle relaxing effects. So I was taking about not 3 a day, like I would take pop 3 at once to be able to work at my job as a server. I developed hives. And the doctor just said, people just develop hives, but now I'm learning that I had compromised my gut integrity so that it activated the histamine in my body. And I was just, if you look at pictures of me, I am inflamed in those photos.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers, and I feel it's just that, medical science is not caught up with the current state of academic research. And because, there are well-known relationships between gut health and mental health. The fact that your vagus nerve, it's right down under in your gut, there's serotonin produced in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I can think about a story I was listening to on another podcast with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, the famed, I believe she's a microbiologist, if I'm not mistaken, or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. But in other words, you can check her Instagram out. I'm sure I'm butchering her description, but she talked about, like being put on antibiotics and developing like highly like depressive symptoms. And her doctor, she was saying, it was like ready to put her on antidepressants and be like,
Yep.
all right, you need these drugs to counteract the other drugs. And later on, she realized it's because the antibiotics killed her good gut bacteria. That was then affecting her mood due to like the serotonin drop. And so once she got on a strong probiotic, boom, all the symptoms went away. And it's like, holy shit, like being put on SSRIs or antidepressants are no joke. Like that's some serious shit, man.
Yep.
And when doctors are just so ready to give that to you, like that's not good. You're just doping up. You're doping up the adults on antidepressants. You're doping up the kids on their ADHD medication because little Johnny doesn't like sitting in class all day. I mean, nowadays
Because
it's
it's not
Zoom
supposed to.
calls.
Because people are supposed to move during the day and they're probably being fed a whole bunch of high processed foods that are sending them through a roller coaster of hormones. And then we get mad at these kids and we say that they've got a problem, but really they're just on a whole bunch of drugs that we're not paying attention to them. We're just feeding them
Yeah.
drugs.
You ever like look at those like the old cereal commercials, like Tricks or Lucky Charms? At the very end, they would say part of a complete breakfast, and they show you what the breakfast is, and it's like you got the Lucky Charms, and you got like a glass of orange juice. Well, number one, I'm not sure who's drinking orange juice with their cereal to begin with.
Kind of disgusting.
Yeah, that's really gross. They got the milk in the cereal as well. I'm like that's fucking gross. But then they show like a piece of like buttered toast and like and you got an apple in there, and it's like, man, how much sugar are you fucking cramming into this kid? And
Before they go
now
to
you're gonna
sit down in class and they're supposed to listen to somebody, like they're bouncing off the walls.
yeah, literally. And it's like oh, Johnny is just he's got attention deficit disorder, and
No, you're
here's
feeding him
some
crack every morning. That's what it
yeah, so
is.
here's some amphetamines to get him to focus more. And you wonder, why so many kids are on drugs these days. It friggin' blew my mind when I got back into grad school and I started TAing like the undergrad kin students.
Hmm.
And I'm actually
Yeah.
going to throw them under the bus for a second here, because compared to like when I was in engineering, like the whole class, like they like we're all keeners because we're all nerds. Because I mean, the engineering
Yeah.
program, like you need like a 90 average to get into that program to begin with. So these are all just hardcore nerds who are just studying all day. But when I got to meet these kin students, they're out, like they're out partying like on a Tuesday night, getting like pissed drunk until like 4 o'clock in the morning, doing coke and popping mollies. And I was like, God damn, like these kids are like 20. And then they're out there just like wrecking their bodies. And that was a real eye opener to me, like I mean, like I'd be at a bar as well, but I'm not getting that fucked up. And I see the kids ITA, and then like the kids like when kids like sweating bullets from all the coke he did. And I'm
The night
thinking, like,
before.
God damn. And like, you guys are in kin as well. Like, you guys are going to come the future, like kinesiologists, exercise physics, chiropractors. Like, God damn. Like, I'm probably going to take my healthcare somewhere else.
Yeah. It's funny. Before I got into university, I was that lost kid. I mean, I wasn't athletic. I feel like a lot of people that get into kinesiology probably have a sports background. I was
Mhm.
not. And so when I got into the party stage, I was drinking and I was gaining weight. So I turned to cocaine because I wanted to lose weight. And that sent my personality through like a carburetor. Basically, I was a terrible person because I was depleting all the happy chemicals in my brain. So luckily, it was only about a year of that before I was able to talk to a friend who I was like, do you think I'm doing too much of this stuff? He's like, oh yeah. So I quit. And, then I turned to, of course, fat burners, which are like a legal form of cocaine. So that's my first mistake. I mean, it's really hard to pick a first mistake. We talk about those painkillers. We'll talk about that, I think, at a next episode, because I have an extensive experience with painkillers, lots of symptoms that have come out of that. But fat burners is one that I took, really early on. Back in the day, we were on the forums chatting with each other, maybe before we met. But the caffeine and ephedrine stack, that was what I was on. So went to Sports Nutrition Depot downtown Toronto, got myself some caffeine and ephedrine, and then I proceeded to like sweat profusely for the next like 3 years and not sleep properly. I remember going to university, my hand was on the bar on the bus holding on. I was just pouring sweat out. I couldn't sleep. I mean, these of course raise your metabolism because they just spike your hormones, so this is sending your body into fight or flight. So I had like huge anxiety, of course, because I was inducing anxiety in my body. And I see tons of people looking for these kinds of answers. And I don't really know the metabolic damage that I've done to myself, but I've had insomnia for 4 years now, at the age of 36.
Wow.
And I've been able to back off all that stuff. This pre-workout I take sometimes might be an ice cream, might be a cookie. I make my own brownies, but I'm not on any kind of stimulant aside from green tea and caffeine at this point. And now we're seeing dry scooping. Like, what the F, man? Like, who invented that? Like, that was a good idea. Oh my God. Like, it's not fun. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I used to eat hot chocolate, but dry scooping
So like
pre-workout?
I'm behind on that. It's like I'm not following the current trends. But what is, so like you're taking like what, like
The powder. They just eat the powder.
pre-workouts?
They just they're like cheers, and then they take the little scoop and then they put it in their mouth. Like apparently they don't
Why?
have, because it hits harder. Like what? It
What?
hits your teeth because it's gonna, like, all the citric acid in there ruins your enamel. Like it just blows my mind that these kids think that they've somehow hacked the system because they're leaving out water and it's doing this magic job. I mean, like, I'm 36, guys. I've got more energy than you guys do. Apparently, that's something to look at.
So one thing I noticed when I was in school was all the guys who were on or who were using massive pre-workouts were also the same guys who were, like crushing insane amount of mollies on the weekend.
Yep.
And I get the feeling, like remember Jack 3D?
No, usually you talk about Simpsons, so like I don't even know who this person is.
So like Jack 3D was like the big like pre-workout, and it used this ingredient called 1,3-dimethylamine. I might be mispronouncing that, DMAA.
I was no
And
explode. I was a no exploder.
Okay. So that's just that's like, that's like a shit ton of caffeine and what have you in there. But DMA was some next level shit. This is like they actually use it in Australia as a surrogate for MDMA when the kids can't find any.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
So now they're putting in supplements and you're getting that same like euphoria that you get from like Pop and Molly. But now you're at the gym and fuck, like I remember at the Waterloo gym, like the CIF, it was like their more like, so I'll back off of it for a second here. So at my school at Waterloo, there were two gyms, the PAC and the SIF. And the PAC was very much like your no nonsense gym. Like it was in the basement of this smelly, musty building. There were no windows, no natural light on the weekends. It would get insanely humid in there because I think they shut off the HVAC system. But that's where all the big serious lifters trained at. I remember going in there as a fresh-faced 18-year-old kid and just looking at all these fucking monsters that were in there throwing weights around, going like kind of, it's not pretty intimidating. Lo and behold, I evolved into that. But I mean, the PAC was like where you got your work in. Like it was just serious, no nonsense. A lot of power lifters, a lot of weight lifters there, a lot of all the football players. But then the SIF was, more so like your health club gym. So that you had like all like the treadmills and the free weights and just like idiots and douchebags would go there, like your social media generation. And at one point they had a live DJ who would play there on Wednesdays. And I remember like guys telling me so excited, like, oh yeah, I got DJ now. And I'm like, why do you need a DJ while you work out?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know what? I'm kind of I definitely think that like everybody, deserves a pat on the back, but a lot of people are just misguided. They're looking at stuff that they see in Oxygen magazine or Muscle and Fitness. They're, listening to a celebrity trainer. I was just watching somebody online yesterday. I'm pretty sure she's got to be on some kind of steroids, just judging by the leanness. And what's funny too is a lot of the female fitness models that I see get breast implants, and so it's so confusing to look at somebody that is that lean, that has the size of a woman who would be at a regular body fat. But this woman is jumping on this trend that's happening right now, and it's driving me nuts. And it's like, you can eat all this candy, it's not toxic, there's nothing in it that's bad for you. Okay, well, you know what, there's no moral value about food, whatever, but I wouldn't eat rat poison either. Like there are studies that show that this stuff sends signals to your brain that tell you to eat more. But because it fits in the algorithm, this chick is jumping on, she's probably on steroids, and she's telling all of her followers, and they want to hear it. They're like, oh, great, that is exactly the diet I need. I'm going to go give this girl money because she's going to let me eat candy. And yeah, she's going to let you eat candy, and you're probably going to be stuck on her for the rest of your life because you're not going to get anywhere. She's going to tell you you need to try harder.
Yeah, I think this really ties back into what you said earlier, that people just want to hear what they want to hear. They people, even though they say it, they actually don't want the challenge, their beliefs to be challenged,
Mm-hmm.
because it's such a paradigm shift to realize, holy fuck, I've been wrong this entire time. And I mean, all of us, including me, have enormous egos. And when you're told that, hey, like you're wrong, or no, like the way your entire paradigm is not ideal, it's like, wow, like this is like really offensive. And this is one reason people get so mad when you tell them this kind of thing, not just in fitness, but you look at politics, other world issues. This is why we have such like a big gap between it's either you're with me or you're against me, and the two
Mm-hmm.
sides battle each other, arguing on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and doesn't go anywhere because neither side will budge, just looking for their echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like going back to what you said, like a lot of these, like Instagram or fitness influencers, they're just telling you what you want to hear, and they're able to figure out the Instagram algorithm, whether it's just through flashy colors or 4K videos, or just the chick, just taking pictures of her ass all day, going like, hey guys, trained arms, with a big like picture of her ass and these like skin tight leggings. But and then so like they get the platform, they're the ones constantly being pushed in your feed, because they're the one that the algorithm's pushing. But now it becomes just like the dumbest person in the room is now the loudest.
Mm-hmm.
And often when someone's misguided, they'll just go and be like, okay, what's the most popular thing, I'll just follow that.
Mm-hmm.
So you got people following, like I was talking to a guy the other day who's doing the Athlean X home workout program, whatever the fuck that is. But when he described it, it's like, yeah, this does not sound good to me. It's like the old like P90X, I suppose. And I remember when that was such a craze. And again, like they sell you on this ideal image that everyone wants.
Mhm.
And this
So
is actually
no behind the
something.
scenes. There's no like MRI on their body. There's no movement analysis. There's no like, hey, I want to see, your last colonoscopy results. Like, is your colon full of cancer? Because a lot of these power lifters, that's what's coming out of the results right now is that protein causes cancer.
Yeah, like like it's like yeah, like powerlifting is a great example. Where you see a video of like some Eric Lillybridge or Brandon Lilly type character, who's like totaling close to 3,000 pounds. But then it's like, all right, well, let's see what your resting heart rate and blood pressure are looking like.
Yeah.
Let's get an EKG of your heart and see how that's going. Let's take a look at your liver enzyme values. And it's like, this is all stuff that you're gonna sweep under the rug because you don't want that information getting out there.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, just to go back, I want to correct what I said. I think I said protein causes cancer. What I meant was most protein powders cause cancer, and that's because of the poor quality maltodextrin that's added to them. A recent tidbit I learned from Dr. Serrano in Toronto. Awesome lectures. So, what about your second mistake that you made in your journey?
second mistake, I would say, would be, just ego. Just shutting the ego down and realizing that you got a lot to learn, you got a lot to work on before you go do all the cool, fun stuff. And I think this kind of ties into what I said earlier. Again, everyone goes on Instagram and fuck, like I'll bring it about someone else. I used to be an S&C coach at a certain gym that trained a lot of, like young athletes, high school kids. And I used to train this high school player. I think he was like either a tight end or defensive end. And we would do these workouts. And I mean, the thing is that he was like a tall, lanky kid, and he needed to gain weight. So a lot of our work was just, you guys got to lift. We got to teach you how to lift heavy weights. We got to get you moving well so you don't hurt yourself while you're trying to lift weights in pursuit of getting gigantic. But he'd be like, "Oh, I saw this post on Instagram of this guy doing these ladder drills. I want to do ladder drills." And I just be like, "Slow down, partner. Like, what is the ladder drill even doing for you?" Like, and I look at the video and be like, "Okay, this is a neat little parlor trick, but he's getting like zero hip extension out of this. Like, there's like the amount of like lateral stability is so poor. His footwork is sloppy as shit. It looks cool because he's moving so quickly, and
Mhm.
you got the music playing, got the rap music playing in the background and all that kind of
Looks like a
bullshit."
Nike commercial, frankly. Like,
Yeah.
I just throw me in, coach. Like I could be in that Nike commercial right away. I can do my little ballerina steps on this ladder and no one really knows what I'm doing, but it's a lot of movement and there's some music.
Yeah, and what's it gonna do with your actual performance? Like all that fancy ladder stuff ain't gonna save you when some 400-pound nose tackle fucking runs you over.
I'm just
So
picturing right now him doing his little friggin', dance in front of somebody and just getting smashed in the face.
but yeah, but like like tying it back to me, I can think about when I was like younger. Like I mean, I started lifting seriously when I was 18. And I mean, like especially guys, like when you're in that, like late teens to like mid
Mhm.
20s, you're just like such a fucking douchebag and asshole because I mean you're a young guy, and especially the weightlifters too.
Well,
Like
you
you get
know so much, right? You know so much. I mean, it's really hard to deal with the general public at that age because of the amount of knowledge you have.
yeah, like looking back now, I wish I could smack myself for doing a lot of this dumb shit. And like this is one reason I just avoid commercial gyms because of all this nonsense, and especially now with the social media. But yeah, like for myself, like I would read a lot about powerlifting, and the thing was that I've been told anyways that I'm a naturally strong and quick guy. Like strength, it comes very naturally to me.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
when I'm getting into powerlifting or bodybuilding, and I'm making gains real quickly, I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm good at this. I know this. Like no one can tell me shit about this.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
it's like, no, man, you might want to lower the weight so you can learn how to bench properly, so you don't blow your shoulders out. And it's like, ah, fuck you.
And a
I know.
couple surgeries later, here we are.
Like, yeah, maybe should have listened to that.
Yeah.
And but like I think that's just like a side effect of lifting, because I have a whole theory about this. And it's that, like when you're just lifting, like, and you get that pump going and you get the adrenaline flowing, like you feel like the man, like no one can
Mhm.
stop me. and it just blows your ego up because you're just constantly just like getting that dopamine rush and just stroking your ego each time you go lift,
Well, you're
each time you go
told you work
train.
hard, like, right? It's all the sweat, it's all the effort that you put in, and trying harder means more results. But sometimes trying
Yeah.
harder it means that you end up blowing out a ligament or a tendon or a muscle because you're not paying attention to the rest of your body.
Yeah, yeah. And like at the same time, there's a lot of guys, going back to this idea that people only want to focus what they're good on.
Mm,
So they'll only train bench press and bicep curls
yeah.
and like
It's how I
squats.
look
So
at guys. Like, when I'm, like, looking at a guy and, like, I see him from the front, I'm like, and then he turns around, and if there is no posterior chain, like, I cannot even deal with that guy.
there's like a few things for me. Like I know, like if I look at someone and they have, like, they got a jacked up her body, but like skinny little legs, or like no posterior chain, they got a flat ass, or like a skinny little neck. It's like, okay, this is just like a twerp in disguise.
Mhm.
Some guys just train him bench press and bicep curls, like Jersey Shore knits, going to the bars and trying to flex his bicep to pick up chicks all day. That's their mo. But when you're at that age, you get your ego fed into. And I can
Mhm.
think of one of the on the other end of the spectrum, other than lifting weights, I was big in the martial arts. And one thing I
Mm.
noticed was that when you're at a good martial, there's a lot of douchebag MMA guys, which just you can attest to, because
I know them
they
all. I know them all.
because they follow the same thing. They're stroking each other's ego. But when you go into like a good like a Muay Thai gym, or like a good
With a
BJJ gym,
solid Eastern philosophical
yeah,
background, that is
yeah,
the key.
yeah, because like the thing is about, like, especially because Muay Thai was my martial arts, and I've been training for holy fuck, like 10 years now. And like, I mean, I was very fortunate to train with some great guys. Shout out to Andrew Poon, old school Victory Muay Thai, Waterloo Muay Thai, and then later on shout outs to Crew Nick at Brampton Muay Thai. I think about those guys, plus the guys at York Muay Thai. Didn't spend too much time there. They all come from another gym called Sam Number One, and
Mhm.
John Suchart, the founder of Sam Number One, he's this old Thai man, built like a brick shit house. And what people don't realize is that traditional Muay Thai is based in a lot of Buddhist origins.
Mhm.
So when you talk about respecting your opponent before you fight, you do the Y Crew dance to pay homage to your trainers and those who have come before you. But it's a very like egoless sport, for
Well, it
most
breaks
people.
your ego, right? You get
Yeah,
people, as long as you work at your craft and stuff, you see guys that are tiny owning the big guys. So it is a sport that really helps to bring that ego down.
it's humbling. And same with, look at jujitsu or judo. Like I remember
Mhm.
I got into judo at the height of my powerlifting days. And I was thinking to myself, man, I'm 240 and I can bench press 405 pounds. Who's gonna
Gonna
fucking
own
stop me?
these guys.
And then I would get on the mats with a blue belt, and he just fucking like took me and smashed me into the earth. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that didn't go as planned.
So was
And
your
that's the
strategy to
thing.
eat more so that you were heavier so that he couldn't do that?
Yeah, that's always strategy when all those cells just eat more. It's like that again, Simpsons.
Yep.
When Lisa, I think Lisa is doesn't want to be a nerd anymore, and they go away to Flanders Cottage for the summer, so she doesn't pack any clothes. So she gives Homer her suitcase, and Homer's like, "Oh, it's her empty suitcase." Homer's like, someone's packing light. And Lisa's like, maybe you're just getting stronger. And Homer goes, well, I have been eating more.
Yeah, I think
But
that was like a huge strategy for us when we were younger.
oh yeah, yeah. Just I'll just cram some more calories and just eat some more McDonald's or eat some more ice cream sandwiches.
Yeah.
But just closing off this martial arts thing, the big difference between say like a pure lifter and a good martial artist is the martial artist is getting their ass kicked. They're getting humbled on a regular basis because they're training with people better than them in a sport where the whole intention is to fuck your opponent up.
Mhm.
So, when you take enough beatings, you have to realize, okay, I'm not hot shit. There's a lot of guys here who don't look the part, but they could easily, kill me if they wanted to. So let's just bring the ego down, because if I don't, they're actually going to kill me because I'm gonna piss them off.
Mhm.
And let's just learn. Let's just learn from scratch about how do I get good.
It
Versus when you're at your local good life and you're just, yeah,
How do I
bench press
look good?
bicep curls.
It's not how do I get good, it's how do I look good, like, that's what I really loved about the fight game and, seeing that from the inside when I was working with the team at Randy Couture and Tapstar was, like, it doesn't matter, like, if you show everybody that you put the work in. Like, you have to actually put the work in, because at the end of the day, you're in that cage, or you're in that ring alone. And I always love that moment, when you got the fighters coming out and they've got their like dancers and there's music, and like, Floyd Mayweather comes out sometimes like a I don't know, like a taquito. I don't really know what to say. Like in a Mexican outfit.
Yeah.
Maybe not a taquito. Anyways, then they get Vaseline applied to their eyebrows, and that is such a moment. They get all big and they're dancing around and they're working out this energy, and then they have to stop because they're going to get punched in the face, and they have to stay still. And that was like my favorite moment leading up to the fight. And then they get in the cage, and it's just them, and it's just the work that they put in. And if you haven't put in the work, I mean, no one's coming to save you in that ring.
Yeah, that's when shit's getting real. Like, yeah, you can have like this flashy entrance and have some rapper accompany you to the ring and sing your theme song. But then when the cut man comes and starts putting the Vaseline on your face, you're like, okay, fuck, this is for real now. They're doing this so my eyebrow doesn't get split open, so some guy bludgeoning me in the face. So then you get into the ring and feel adrenaline rise. Like, I remember during my very limited amateur career, yeah, like, when you're at a fight, like, you've cut weight, you weighed in, all you can do is just sit there and think. And you just got all the time in the world. You got a few hours anyway, so just sit there and think about, okay, what's going to happen today? I got to make sure my game plan is set. I got to make sure that all the training I did, I remember it. That I'm not going to gas myself out. I'm not going to hyperventilate and lose all my cardio in the first 1 minute. And yeah, it gets down to that. And then that's why I love that at the amateur level, because you're not in it for the glory. You're in it because you're passionate about it. And that's a big difference. Nowadays, like, it fucking infuriates me. All this, who is it? Jake Paul or Logan Paul or whoever those.
Is he a rapper or something? Like,
I think the guy was like I remember one of those guys got in trouble on YouTube because he was making fun of some like dead people, or he's in a suicide forest and he's talking about it.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I guess their MO is to make
money. So he's got a death wish, and now he's going to fight Floyd Mayweather, I think. Like, is that what I saw?
Yeah, I saw that, and I refuse to pay.
I mean, it's tax time, so Floyd needs money right now, right? Like, that's what happens, is the tax man comes, and Floyd's like, I'm unretiring for the 6th time.
Yeah, like, I remember when Floyd fought Conor McGregor, and I was like, I refuse to pay money to watch this, because they're just suckering in the same people who are falling for the Instagram fitness people. They're the same people falling for this bullshit, thinking like, oh, I think McGregor's gonna have a chance. I think McGregor's gonna kill him. It's like, no, he's not. Like, this is the most lopsided fight you could ever imagine. And I'm surprised, like, Mayweather's not like 10,000, like minus 10,000 favorites going into this fight, because he's like, you take a guy who's been training his entire life for the single sport of boxing versus some MMA fighter who's been training boxing seriously for a year. Like it's not going to happen.
Well, so what's funny is was it the fight with Pacquiao? Like, Mayweather was on the defense, is what it looks like, but like, no one, everyone that knew about boxing knew what was going on, but he like didn't have the ego, he didn't have the flash. Everybody thought he was losing, and he won. The guy's a game player.
Yeah, I remember after that fight, so many people on my social media were complaining, going like, "Oh, Floyd just runs, not a real boxer." I'm like, what the fuck? Like, okay,
the guy got paid, man. The guy got paid. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't want to get punched in the face, and I want to make some money, and the guy did both.
Yeah, and I mean, if you understand the sport of boxing, you'd understand that head movement and footwork are a huge, like, probably the most integral part, more important than actually being able to throw a punch.
You know what I love is, like, before the fight or after the fight, usually you get in the gym and there's people on the bag and they're just, their hands are down here and they're just punching. And I'm like, man, I would pop you in the face so bad. Like, please talk on the phone.
Yeah, there's always, just like a bunch of like armchair boxers, is right. Especially, and this is the thing as well, I'm gonna rant about this for a second, is that, like we were talking about that Instagram page, you look like a man, and just all the gross bullshit that a lot of guys say to women who are in like the physical culture or fitness world. And it's that, for some reason, and it's men especially, I'm not just trying to throw them under the bus, but this is a reality that they just seem to feel that they're entitled to talk about anything to do with, testosterone fueled events, whether it's fighting, it's weightlifting, it's, like building a car or anything like that. They just feel like they have to be an authority on this Otherwise, their masculinity is now questioned.
Which is
So you
why I
talk
get
about
unmatched so much on dating apps, I think.
yeah, like I remember you showed me some of these guys, and there's some like some guy with like a beer gut who kind of looks like that I term is
Oh, that
husky.
one. Oh my gosh. He has a muffin top. He doesn't even have a beer gut. He's like a full on muffin top. He is a personal trainer that writes best-selling fiction books, which I think are about him being a personal trainer, because I've never seen a dude with a muffin top like that. Like, who shows it off. Like, he's there in tree pose, and like, the thing is, it's unfortunate, but like, your body does showcase your knowledge. I am a perfect example of that. If you go back 10 years when I just got out of school and I knew all this stuff, I actually didn't know this stuff. And I stopped training because I didn't know what I was doing. Through trial and error and continuous learning, which a lot of it is new research, I want to say within the last 5 years. But my experimentation and consulting with different sources, I've been able to completely change my body composition, change my metabolism. But I didn't know how to do that from just the bare bones of what I learned from university or from CanFit Pro or even my CSCS.
Yeah, and like this kind of ties back in, to like the mistakes we've made. I think about myself, like when I first got into training, I was really into bodybuilding. At the time, Ronnie Coleman was the man. I used to watch all his training DVDs, and I was like, I need to lift heavy weights and get big. So I was eating a lot. I remember I'd order like a Swiss chalet family meal and eat that for dinner, like the
Oh
whole
man, but like, let's
kitchen.
talk about the real stuff that you ate, like bottles of olive oil. I think I saw you shared like a Facebook memory about like 6 eggs that you'd be on, like, you'd be like, "Hey man, just gonna chug my protein shake here with some 6 eggs, 6 raw eggs in it," and I'm just like, "Okay, cool." I was all on fat burners, so I'm like this.
Oh yes, yes, the olive oil shakes. Like, yeah, that's the thing was that I wanted to get big, and I didn't. Again, going back to the ego thing, I did equate the fact that I'm getting big, but I'm also getting fat, and
You were
because I
chunky. I
would
did
get
put up some
stronger.
big pictures of you. That homeless look was like really working for you.
At the time, I just thought, oh man, I'm looking jacked, and it's like again, like another Simpsons memory, but like they talk like shows like Homer, like he's like drinking a beer, and like Marge is like, "Do you ever drink beer to escape reality?" And he's like, "Nope." And he's looking in the mirror, and he's like all shredded in the mirror, and he's like doing like the peck dance, and just like imagining like how jacked he is. But like same thing, like I was getting like real chunky, and I was thinking, oh, I'm just getting big. I'm getting jacked.
And it's by
Uh,
weight, right? Like, that's the thing, is like a lot of this ego, whether it's like the time that you're spending, the number of reps that you're doing, but it's the weight that you're putting on the bar, and then the weight of your own body. I was just watching somebody talk about how, common it is for men. They want to reach a certain body weight, and then that stays stagnant. And it doesn't even take into account that sometimes they just get fat. Like, you can get buff at 220, but if you've got a huge belly and you can't see your penis, this guy was talking about, you need to be able to see your penis. Otherwise, you have like a huge cancer risk. You probably super hormonal on estrogen. Like, nobody talks about how like, I'm a single girl, girls. I'm struggling with this right now. Like, the dad bod. That's not what the dad bod is. These are guys that are not taking care of themselves. They've got tons of estrogen circulating, and they look to me like bags of sickness in the future. So I'm just staying away from those.
so
Um,
like talking about the dad bod, this is the thing. I was and because I mean when I was single, I would I'd be on dating apps and girls would be talking about, oh, like abs aren't in, dad bod's in. I'd be like, okay, what's the dad bod? And they send me a picture of like Chris Hemsworth. And I'm like, that's not a dad bod. This guy like works out a lot to look like that. Like, this is a dad bod. And I'll send a picture as like, like your muffin top guy. And like this is what a real dad bod is. And they're kind of
and
like,
the dad bod is different than the guys that let themselves go, which is now being called the dad bod, because the dad bod is actually a hormonally induced response to your wife getting pregnant or your partner getting
mm.
pregnant. And it's something I learned from Dr. Huberman's podcast recently. And it's thought that it's to store energy. You gain weight so that you have access to energy, because guess what? You are going to stay awake for a number of nights because that baby is going to be screaming. But after the age of 4, you're just lazy. You don't have a dad bod. You're just lazy. But yeah, it goes back to that ego thing. So I'm going to dive into the second mistake that I made, again, relating to ego. And that was not enough mobility stuff, which has become basically the majority of my workouts now. But for the longest time, stretching was not my thing. I mean, don't see a lot of that on Instagram. I see people hopping around a lot, loading up the weights, crossfitting, everything, but no mobility. So I was on this program that was given to me by, one of those famous Good Life trainers. And I did it for about 6 months. A lot of machine-based stuff, which I, hardly touch now with the exception of being injured. And I call it the patella killer because at one point I'd be walking and I would step and my knee would just be pulled out of place by my tendons and by my ligaments because my muscles were so tight from doing the same lunge movement with poor form on a machine for 6 months. And this was like I was 24, I just started working out and my knee was screwed up and I didn't know why. And it was again because I wasn't doing that mobility stuff. It wasn't sexy, didn't feel like I was working hard enough. And now that is the majority of what I'm doing. I'm pretty sure when I go to the gym, people are like, does this girl ever lift weights? Or because she just like, all I do, stretch, mobility, and, right now, light weights. I'm really excited, the progress I've made over the last year to start getting more weight on the bar at some point. But right now, I've been focusing on the structural integrity. So working with, opening up the space in my body and finding that new movement in my joints and then training it back in with a lightweight, but it's taking so long. I'm like all the tissue in my ankles and in my feet, I'm having to break up. And then just walking, I'm getting, the muscles are relearning how to move in the correct position. And so it's having to be like, it's not a quick fix. Like, I wish I could go in and just be, fixed, but it has been a slow adjustment to a completely new movement pattern. And so I'm really excited to get to that point where I get the weight on the bar, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, like that's a beautiful analogy. You hit the nail on the head with that. That you need structural integrity before you can load stuff up, and that's the law of nature. That's what you learn in engineering school on day one. And it's like, analogy is like if you had like a car where the suspension was all shot, the brake pads are all like down to like millimeters of thickness,
Hmm.
and then like the wheels are all imbalanced. Like you're not going to take that to a racetrack and go try to like get your fastest lap time. You're going to take your car apart. You're going to replace all these parts, make sure that everything is running. You're going to test it constantly, and once it's running at an acceptable level, then you can go take it to the racetrack. And yeah, this is one of the things that people don't. But then the thing is that doing all your pit work, all your mechanic work, that is not sexy. It's not fun to do. It's just a lot of hard work. And going back to the whole theme of today, people just seem to want to shy away from this hard work because it sucks to do. You're not getting that dopamine rush from your ego being fed.
Yeah, no one
So yeah,
cares. No one cares
yeah.
about your stretching routine. Like, that's the thing is I'm finding this problem of like everything that's helping people are like, yeah, 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 yeah. No, I know how to chew food, but I'm like, no, you don't. Like, like this is people talk about, oh, I don't know how to start, losing weight. Like, start chewing your food, start sleeping better, start drinking more water. You don't have those down. I can tell you right now, the majority of people do not have those down. They don't have their gut health down. These are all lame, boring things. Like, I can't, like, what am I going to do? Post a video of me sleeping on Instagram, like, and hope that that jumps in the algorithm? No, it's not going to happen, unfortunately. But I love that analogy about, the racetrack. It makes me just in my head, it makes me think of a Toyota Corolla just running out there and then zipping around the track until it runs out of gas. And I feel like that's what, and then it just kind of lips in to the pit stop. And you might have, Jiffy Lube jump in there, give it a quick oil change, and then it's out again on the track, and it's like that Jiffy Lube is like, your therapist, your chiropractor that kind of tries to put you back together and says, oh, you need to work on your breathing. And you're like, cool, got a race. Goodbye.
Yeah, like I can think of so many. I got like a client right now through Fortius. He when he came to me, he's like a military dude. He's trying to get up through the special forces. Very endurable guy. He's built to go all day long. But he started experiencing massive shin splints and knee pain and ankle pain when he's out doing his rucks with a 100-pound rucksack for like miles on end. And he was saying he saw a lot of chiros and physios, all that kind of stuff. And they're kind of like, oh, I think you might have a hip problem, just do these exercises, you'll be okay. And it's like, no, 6 months later I'm not okay, and I need to perform. So, and that was the big difference, is that when I got a hold of him, we just broke down all his basic movements. We looked at how stable are you, how mobile are you stable in these certain awkward positions where you can't compensate around them. And in terms of the answer was no. We figured out that he had a massive foot instability problem and a big toe immobility. So I remember like telling him that, hey, like, we're just gonna concentrate on getting your toes more mobile. And he kind of looked at me like,
So weird.
yeah, he's like, what? Like a little foot fetish there, man? Like, what's the
Yeah.
deal? But
Like he's like, no, 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 it's too easy. This is the thing. It's too easy for him. He's like, no, 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 no. I'm a military professional. I do all this crazy shit. There must be something bigger wrong with me. Like that, I won't
yeah.
accept that.
Yeah, and like, I mean, luckily, he's like he's very coachable, great listener, and he followed through with the program I gave him, which was literally roll your feet out. We did a bunch of weird big toe drills and foot stability drills, and he came back to me 2 weeks later, and he was like, "Holy fuck! Like, I've been trying to solve this for 6 months, and you figured it out in 2 weeks." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I guess the system works."
Yeah, but just a hot tip: don't use the hashtag foot stuff when you're talking about it on Instagram because it's dangerous.
Little personal experience there.
Now I'm calling it only Jan's. Okay, so do you want to jump into the third, mistake that you made in your health and fitness journey?
Yeah, I think, like number three, and it kind of ties in number two, which is just not focusing on the important stuff. And when I mean important, I mean like the stuff that it's going to keep you alive. Because you can't lift weights if you're dead. So you got to make sure that that your blood sugar is in check, your triglycerides and blood lipids are okay, your heart rate's okay, heart's not going to explode out of your chest one day. And
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I remember one time that your blood sugar was questionable. It was when I introduced you to Randy Couture. I was like, "This is my friend Ben," and I think he's going through withdrawal right now.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a fun day. Yeah, like, because that's the thing, was that again, like, as like a young guy who's just trying to get big and strong, you just like you're looking for diet strategies about just how can I cram more calories into myself. And I was doing this diet, like, and I don't know, like, it was written by an actual, like, by a professor at University of Toronto. And I get the feeling maybe I just, in my infinite wisdom, again going back to the point number two, I just butchered the entire diet itself. But it was called the anabolic diet, written by Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale, who I believe was like a kinesiology prophet at University of Toronto, and also a former powerlifter. And I think he was also the doctor for the WWE at the time, back in like the early 90s, or WWF at the time. But the whole diet it was kind of like the precursor to what I guess is called keto nowadays, because it was a super high fat diet. I think 60% of your calories came from fat. You were eating your protein at like whatever 2 pounds per gram of 2 grams per pound of body weight, or something insane like that. And you're getting like 30 grams of carbs a day at most. But the thing was that on the weekend, you did your carb refeeds, and they would just reverse like the macros. So you're just cramming as much carbs as you can to take advantage of the supposed insulin sensitivity.
Which
So
I've learned is the number one. It's the number one worst way to ruin your gut is doing cheat days. These cheat days, like that everybody does, it just keeps them in a cycle. It's funny that we
oh
talk
man.
about this right now.
Yeah, because my cheat days, holy shit. Like, I remember I was living in Kincardine, Ontario at the time. I was on co-op working at Bruce Nuclear Plant. And on my cheat days, like Saturday, Sunday, I'd get up Saturday morning, go to the gym. On the way back, because it's such a small town, I would just stop up at the local grocery store. And like I would buy like a couple dozen donuts, a big box of like Reese peanut butter puffs or Lucky Charms, those like
Well, you needed a
store.
whole breakfast, right? Nutritious.
Yeah, yeah. So part of my complete breakfast, get like a loaf of raisin bread, like those store-made pizzas and the garlic bread, and just cram all that into me. And I remember that time I met Randy
You must have
Couture.
looked like you just got out of prison, man. Like I just feel like you looked so rough. Like those are the
Oh
clothes
man.
you went there with. They're like, oh, he just got his clothes back and just got after the garlic bread, eh, buddy?
Yeah, I haven't worn these clothes in 5 years, eh? Like, what did you go away for?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and like I remember the time I met Randy, I was like here back in Brampton, and my cheat day was just like a shit ton of pancakes and maple syrup. And I remember cramming down like a ton of them before going out to meet you at Randy's gym. I could just feel as I was getting there, my blood sugar just like plummeting, and I was like sweating buckets and just like all shaky. And I remember meeting Randy and just like I'm sure like I probably scared him off, and I was trying to like tell him how such a big fan I was. And I think all this just like word soup came out of my mouth. I couldn't form a coherent sentence. He was kind of looking at me, kind of shaking his head, going like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Next, please."
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a definite memory for sure.
So never again. So yeah, all that stuff about, like, in that same time, like I remember you talked about caffeine and ephedrine. Like I remember when I discovered caffeine tablets,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like in second year of university. And that's the thing, is that, like when you're in university, you're all by yourself, and like and then you're partying or you're just not going to bed. And then you fall asleep in class, and all of a sudden with these caffeine pills, I could just go all day. But I
I
wasn't
thought I would
sleeping.
sleep when I was dead. That's what I kept
Yeah.
on saying.
Same here. That was the big thought. And yeah, so like I found like the caffeine pills, and when you're taking that and not sleeping, eventually, his body's gonna make you pay for that. It's like you can only delay it, but you
The
can't
sleep
delay
is
the
when you
inevitable.
grow. Like, this is what I didn't understand. Like, now I try to sleep all the time. Like, the rest portion is so important, but we focused all on the work and didn't give ourselves the space for our body to regenerate for the growth hormone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that kind of blew my mind when I made that realization, going like, oh fuck, like yeah, like sleep is when like your body regenerates itself. Like the training breaks it down and creates the
Mhm.
stressor, but the adaptation occurs through the recovery through sleep. And goddamn, like, that's a lot of mistakes made there.
If you look at the
So
pictures of us, though, I feel like you can just see it. Like, I just didn't think that we'd be here. I'm going to be 37 next month, and I feel the best I've ever felt about my body. And I don't do cardio on purpose unless it's like through my sports. I'm lifting less weights, and I'm spending a ton of time in the kitchen, which is, I think, a result of being able to test a lot of recipes on my poor friends for a number of years.
yeah, it's funny how priorities change. Like yeah, like when you're young, like I know for guys, every single guy I know who's gotten into the world of like either weightlifting or just being active, they all started off lifting because they all thought, oh, if I'm jacked, women will like me, so I got to pick up chicks by getting jacked. Well, it doesn't work like that. It didn't work on your personality.
Well, you know
And-
what? These days, I think people buy a puppy instead of getting a personality. Seeing it clone all the
or
time.
they drink red wine, or they watch The Office, or the debate of pineapple belongs on pizza.
Oh, so this guy just messaged me. He's like, if you think pineapple belongs on pizza, we can't be friends. Like, that was his first message. And I said, okay. And then he wrote back, so we can be friends. And I'm like, you're an idiot. I can't deal with this right now. I just wrote back, okay. Like, I didn't want to be friends anyways, because your first line is, I love going to wineries. Like, there's lots of other chicks in the Okanagan Valley that'll jump on that for you. Just to wrap this up, because we've got a couple minutes left, I'm going to go into the third mistake that I made, and that is poor programming. So, going back to the Teen Nation days, there was this article I read, and I think it had like Britney Spears and Beyonce. And frankly, now that I think that I wanted to be like Britney Spears and I see where she is now, I mean, here I am in my Juicy Couture velour suit. I mean, if we wanted to talk about mistakes were made, frankly, I just I like lounging, straight lounging. It was $250. I bought it in my 20s, and so I still have to continue to wear it because I made that choice, and I make my bed and lie in it. But poor programming. I read this article, and it talked about how, if you're a woman and you train abs, your waist is going to get thicker. And, I actually went back to read the article recently, and it does give you some core exercises. But what I took away from that was, don't train abs. And it talked about, creating an X. So building up your shoulders, building up your glutes, that'll make your waist look smaller. So basically, I had no core integrity. That changed when I started bobsledding. But for a long time, the stuff that I was doing, doing ended up twisting all the fascia, all the spiral lines in my body. And then when I was hit by that skier, boom, everything came undone. And it was a lot of it was because I took away again. I heard what I wanted to hear. Don't do abs. Okay. And you know what? At that time, again, speaking to that ego point, like a lot of people think you got to train abs so that you can show them off and they're going to be ripped. And it's like, no, 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 no. Everybody should be training abs. And it's not about taking your shirt off. It's about sitting. It's about standing. It's about walking. Like now that I understand, and I'm pulling together my core and I'm able to feel it, like I am so excited and thrilled. But I'm also seeing that there's a lot of people that are walking around with injuries or future injuries, especially the people that we see that are doing the powerlifting, deadlifts and squats with these weightlifting belts on the back that, those are appropriate for people that are professionals in the sport. But for everybody in the gym, I'm like, future client, here's my friend Ben's card. You're going to probably need him in about 5 years.
Yeah, it's you hit it on the head. Like core training is not to look shredded. It's diet is what's going to make you look shredded if that's what your goal is. But core training is going to make sure that your body functions properly. Like that's the most central point of your body, and that's where the vast majority of dysfunctions, including breathing dysfunctions, originate from. And like it kind of brings me back to, like, I remember msn.ca did an article with Stu about how to train your core, how to avoid low back pain. The comments in the comment section were just the biggest idiots in the world. And they're like, and because like the biggest comment was, oh yeah, well, I don't see McGill with his six-pack. And it was just like,
Yeah.
like you obviously did not read the article.
Yeah.
And
And we
like
have an opioid epidemic. We have an opioid epidemic. Like, and I have a dating epidemic because I'm not going to date anybody on opioids. And most of the guys are on opioids because of this issue.
Jesus Christ. Yeah,
I know.
that's fucking insane. And like this could all be avoided. We all just paid a bit more attention to our physical health, invested just, 15 minutes, half hour a day, just getting your body moving properly.
Yeah,
So
it helps you a lot more than being a keyboard warrior. That's for sure. So it seems like the enemy is the ego. I love that we started this off, the unsubscribe tribe. I know that, fitness and health is something that affects everybody. We want to help people. And frankly, we came together because we're tired of talking to those idiots, those people that pretend that they know everything. We're tired of seeing this misinformation on the internet. Ben and I are in the front lines and continuing to push forward with our education. So we're really excited to bring you the real truth. Unfortunately, you're not going to find any sexy advertising algorithm, bunny hopping, CrossFit 75, I don't know what else, dry scooping. Guys, this is not the sexy stuff. This is the stuff that really works. So Ben, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you if they want to learn more? I know that not everybody gets access to your personal Instagram account where they can see you doing your martial arts training and your hot pink shorts, but you do have 40 labs.
yeah, so anyone who wants to get at me on Instagram, you can find me at Fortius Labs. That's FORTIUS LABS. That's my business account. My personal account, BCYLEE, BCY Lee. That's a private account. You can add me there if you want. I probably won't accept you unless you have
Not
someone
everybody gets to see the pink
me.
shorts.
Yeah. The short pink shorts are a privilege only for my closest friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you guys like what you hear today, then stick around because there's a lot more of this coming at you. We're gonna get a lot into some very uncomfortable subjects that is gonna probably make you question what you've been doing, what you're training in your life. This entire, as long as you can remember, we're going to get a lot into the fragile male ego because I got a whole bunch of bullshit to say about that. We're going to talk about what you need to be doing, common mistakes about training, about injury prevention and rehab that just people just don't have the education to know about. But if if you just want to do some sexy stuff and feel like a badass and be Billy badass and be a warrior, then unsubscribe, get the fuck out of here because we don't want to talk to you anymore.
Smash that unsubscribe button. Cool. Thanks, Ben. And if you want to find me, I'm Rocky's Adventure on Instagram, rockysadventure.ca. We're looking forward to bringing you this great content. Thanks for joining me again today, Ben, and look forward to chatting next week.
Yeah, man.
All right. Bye.